Everything about the way I live my life is very unconventional. It is very different. And it's not because I want people to say, oh, Meir is different, but because I don't have a box. And some people like think in the box, and people sometimes think out of the box. When they try to solve a problem, I don't even start the regular way. It's like weird. It's like automatically goes into like creative problem solving mode. And I wonder why that is. Is it because I've always been different?
All right, so here's something I've been thinking about. When you're starting a business, there's no confusion about your purpose. It's to make money, create stability, and take care of your family. But then one day you kind of get there. You've created that stability, you've created that foundation, and suddenly the thing that was pushing you forward, it disappears. And that's what we're figuring out here on the other side of enough. I'm sitting down with entrepreneurs who have hit their goals, but they're still searching for something more. We're talking about what business excellence really looks like on the other side. Let's get into it. Why don't you introduce yourself to the audience, talk about your past. The thing I like about you, Meir, is there's a lot of things I like about you, but one of the things I like about your background is that you've done a whole bunch of creative business ventures. You're one of the few people I know that knows how to do a Kickstarter campaign, right? And you've done them multiple times successfully. And so let's talk about your past and what projects you're working on now and get us up to speed.
For sure. First of all, thank you, Drew. I appreciate your kind words. I love you too. I think you're an incredible human. You're from the people in this land community that actually like cares about the relationships that they made in this space, far beyond, oh, let's do a deal together, bro. It's more like, how you doing? It's more like, what's going on? And it's no surprise to me that you're creating this podcast to share that feeling and that knowledge with other people, that it's okay, yeah, quit your job and live the life of your dreams by starting a land business. That's BS, man. That land business takes a lot of energy, a lot of hustle. Anyone who says otherwise has something to sell you. So it's a lot of work. And yes, there is a tipping point where if you've done it correctly and you've scaled it correctly and you've put the right people in the right seats, where you could scale your time back. And maybe we could talk a little bit about that. And that is, what's the objective? So I was sitting with 10 seven-figure land investors in Mexico, in Tulum, a couple of months ago, and we're all talking about our goals for the year, and everybody had a number in mind that they wanted to make. And I was surprised that I was the only one that actually said, my goal is to only work on this thing a couple hours a week max. That's really my goal, while also having benchmarks of revenue and profit for the company. But my biggest goal is to scale myself out of this business to the point where this business generates revenue for charity, for myself, for the people on the team, for those around me. And I can then go ahead and do something very creative, like the Kickstarter stuff that you were talking about, or something that talks more to my strengths, my passion, my drive, like fun things that are more like that. So that is really what I think land could do, because it's a very transactional business. It's a very scalable business. It's very, how do I say, it's like money in, money out kind of business. It's not this creative
like a cash flow business.
Yeah. Yes. So that's a little bit of that. This is my background. Born and raised in Uruguay. In Montevideo. Yeah, I'm one of 6 brothers and 1 sister, so one of 7. Born and raised, and still am religious, Jewish. And my parents work for the community, nonprofit. My father's a rabbi. My mom built a school. So my whole life was very much a social, nonprofit, give back to the community. It was never about making money or being in the private sector. So growing up, I always thought I was going to end up doing that, right? End up going to some remote place. My father's from Philadelphia, my mom's from Brooklyn, and they moved to Uruguay. So I thought I was going to end up in some island in the Caribbean. doing the same thing, because it really is very meaningful work to work with the community and to help people and to change lives, really. So I did that for a minute, and then I started working a little bit, and I realized that I'm pretty good at business and I like it, and it's my creative outlet, and I can make money. And with the money, I can make a lot of changes that I want to make. Also, I never liked fundraising. And growing up in the public sector, it was like everything had to be fundraised and donors. And I was like, nah, I don't want that. I want to make my own money.
Right.
So that's how I ended up here in the business world. I started out with graphic designing for some e-commerce company from a friend of mine, and that took me to another e-commerce, and then that took me to creative consumer products, which took me to retail, Kickstarter, then found out about what we were doing. I was close with WeWork's founder, Adam Newman, and he was my sort of a mentor for a minute. And he acquired, it was more like an acqui-hire, our whole company. He wanted me, my partners, and my team essentially to come work for him because WeWork was doing a push into retail. And they were like, here's a very lean and hungry and creative team that's doing a lot of cool shit. Why don't we just bring them on board and have them spearhead retail, essentially going into retail. So we started that vertical within their business, but WeWork was a little, I don't know if you follow the story of WeWork, but it was a crazy time to be at WeWork. After a year, I left, and I took some of the investors, the early investors from WeWork, and we opened up a co-living business in New York. Co-living is essentially WeWork, but for apartments and people who want to live with roommates, but they don't want to deal with the headache of it. And that was in 2020 when I sold it to my partner and I left for California and had my first kid. And then that's when I got into land, because I wanted to start a glamping, like micro resort, creative, unique stays in Joshua Tree. And I realized that it was very difficult to get permits to buy land. And I started doing off market mailers because my brother was doing it. And that's how I got the land. Long story short, about 3 or 4 months ago, we actually launched a micro resort at Whitetail Ski Resort in Pennsylvania. It's 4 mirror glass units that we imported from Europe. It's about $1,000 a night. We sold out a year and a half in advance through Indiegogo. We raised about $500,000 just from backers, and then we also raised money from investors. So we opened that resort mid-January, and it's really magical. I was just there with my wife a few weeks ago, and it's amazing. Land is, I guess, my primary business, is where most of my employees work and where I spend a lot of my energy, I would say. But then I have these kind of like other interesting projects that I like to work on to keep me excited about life.
Well, that's a lot. You've got a lot going on. I did want to share a fun fact. Isn't it your grandpa and your uncle were like the #1 rabbi at the White House or something?
Oh, yeah. I mean, so the Rebbe, the Chabad Rebbe, so he's my leader, the leader of the Jewish people since 1950. He passed away about 30 years ago. So he sent my parents to Uruguay. He actually sent my grandfather to the White House as his representative. And my uncle moved there, and he's the rabbi of Washington, D.C. So he's constantly meeting with dignitaries, and you see a lot of pictures with him and the different presidents and stuff. So it's fun.
And then soon you'll be the rabbi of Miami.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
I want to go that route, but yeah, it's possible. Yeah.
This kind of already leads in to some of these questions that I like to ask. So you said that you do these side projects to keep yourself feeling inspired. What's that? I mean, I've talked about this a lot on my other episodes, but I've gotten bored twice in this business. I found once I scale a business to where it's running efficiently and there's no fires to put out and things get easy, that's when I get bored. Have you found that for yourself? And then the ski resort and your Kickstarter stuff, that's your outlet for having fun?
So I mentioned earlier that I see business as my creative outlet, and every problem that arises for me, it's a opportunity for I get energy. Like we got served a lawsuit by someone who was upset about something, and We ended
For
up
the villas?
I know in land, I'm saying. And I ended up turning that around and made $20,000. And we literally just settled the case a few weeks ago. Why am I sharing that? Is because you say you get bored, but for me, every time it's so hard to get bored in this business. I don't necessarily get bored in the business. I sometimes get bored of the business, of the processes, of managing employees. It gets very tedious. A new process. Oh, we need a new script for the cold colors. We need to measure that script against the other script to see which one performs better. And now we need to track our new purchase agreement. And a lot of this kind of left brain stuff, that's
Right.
what eats at me. But the more creative right brain things, those keep me very engaged in this business. When I say that I like more creative things to do, is maybe out of a fear of what if the music stops with land, or maybe out of, hey, I'm not really building any equity in my land business. It's hard to sell a land business. It's more like a
Right.
deal shop.
It's a cash flow. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe for my ego, it's, hey, I need to be building something nice and pretty that cash flows, that has built-in equity. And that's where all these other plays come in.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's, I think, what's driving me to do like different things.
So it sounds like it's a combination of like passion, having fun, creative outlet, but also this fear that's driving you, which I think most of us have, where, yeah, what if what I'm doing right now just stops working? What if I just got lucky and I rode this wave for a few years and then it like stops making money? I think we all have those fears.
Yeah.
But you have a background. For me, this is the land business is my first niche in the entrepreneurial space.
Right.
So I have the confidence, right? I have the confidence that I can, like, I know deep down inside I can be successful in almost any business venture if it's the right timing. But I haven't done it, but you have, right? You've done other ventures and other niches and other spheres, and you still have that fear. So maybe it just doesn't go away, and it's a constant, like that's why we need to constantly be in prayer and meditation and kind of grounding ourselves, because no matter how much you've achieved in your life, there's always this fear that it's going to all go away overnight. Not overnight, but
yeah, and at the same time, there's also this knowing that everything is going to turn out to be okay, and they go hand.
It's this tension. Yeah, it's like tension between two truths.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys at my church in Los Angeles, they're like high income earning doctors, lawyers, Google, Facebook employees. And they have these guys, you hear them talk, there's constant fear of being laid off. There's constant fear of getting sued. And I just wonder I just feel like everyone, like nobody is bulletproof to these concerns. For you, what have you found is the best way to deal with that? So you have 3 kids, right?
Yeah.
So you have 3 kids, you have a burn rate. Your burn rate's probably pretty low on the personal side. But what do you do on a daily basis?
It's pretty high. 3 kids, tuitions, we're talking mortgage, cars, housekeepers, food, travel. It's a high burn rate, both personal and for the business. And so there's a few things. There's imposter syndrome. And I think that's going to be a key topic on this podcast throughout the episodes that you talk about, where if you don't know what that is, look it up. I'm sure everyone knows what it is, but really look up like where it comes from, what the symptoms are, what it's trying to tell you, and what to do about it. Imposter syndrome is something I definitely suffer from at times. I could be giving a talk at a conference or whatever and be like, why am I here? Like, objectively speaking, there's a reason why I'm there, but in my mind, sometimes it plays games with me. And then to answer your question more directly of what to do about the fear. So I really deep down believe that I'm okay and I'm going to be okay, and not because of my abilities, but I believe in God. I believe that on the first day of the year is when God decides how much everyone is going to make that year. And it doesn't really matter what you don't do. I also, it's if you have a big barrel of water and God put, let's say, 10 gallons in there, you can make a lot of spigots. So, like, every business is a different spigot, but there's not going to be more water coming out than what's inside. So,
Like
these
the
spigots.
like the money thing in Squid Games, where like the money drops into that piggy bank, like that, but no death. Nobody dies in your version.
Exactly. So that's it. A little bit of faith in the creator, knowing that what got me here will get me there. And then also just being like very objective about who we are and where we are. Like, we don't know people who are hungry, right? What is the ultimate absolute worst case scenario? You're going to be okay. And that the primal fear, the old brain fear of, oh my God, how am I going to survive? That you need to have a conversation with that sometimes and be like, you're okay. You'll be okay.
Yeah. I think one thing that helps me is, like, Tim Ferriss was the first self-help book I did, the 4-Hour Work Week. And he talks through, you do this mind exercise where you work through, what do you do? Like, what happens if your worst fear comes true? So let's say you get sued or everything blows up and you lose everything overnight, right? But let's say you don't get hit in the head with a baseball bat. Like, you keep all your knowledge and your family's unaffected. You literally just lose your net worth, right? What happens? You move in with your in-laws or something. Like, you're crammed in a 1-bedroom guest room for a few months. Everyone's still eating 3 meals a day. Nobody's getting rained on. Nobody's cold at night. And your ego takes a hit and you start something else, right? Because you still have all your business knowledge.
Right.
Like, it's literally a downgrade for 3 to 12 months. And it's probably going to be some of the best memories of your life. Josiah Ronco just talked about it a few weeks ago here on this podcast, where he was saying that happened to his family in 2008. And he said they all had to move into a 1-bedroom apartment. And he said it was, as I guess he wasn't a kid back then. I don't know like the life situation, but he said it was some of the best memories of his life.
Huh. Interesting.
He wasn't the adult providing at that time, but like walking through what actually would happen. So like for me, we'd move into, my wife's parents have an extra house in Washington State in a gorgeous view,
right.
Plenty of room. My parents have like multiple extra bedrooms at their place in Wisconsin. It's literally on Lake Michigan. They all have extra cars. Nothing crazy would happen. I would take a hit to my ego and I would probably start praying and journaling a lot more. It might be an upgrade. Literally, if the worst thing, our biggest fears come true, it could be an upgrade in lots of other areas.
Could be. The way my faith talks about these is, it is an upgrade. And the only reason why things like that happen is in order to propel us higher up. So if the way my mom taught it to me when I was a kid is, she stood up, and I'm going to demonstrate a little bit. And she said, try to jump without going down. So you just like that, right? And then she's now take a hit and go low and try to jump. Now you could actually jump way higher. So when we have a dip, when we have the lawsuit that I'm telling you about, or a property that doesn't sell, or I can give you 10 examples in this land business just over the past 3 years. Whereas, holy shit, what am I going to do? Where, okay, I'll tell you what, you're going to make more money as a result. You're going to learn more things. You're going to make more connections. You're going to be well prepared for the next one. And literally today, I had this happen to me 3 times. And while I'm talking to you, I'm realizing why it's happening to me, which is incredible. I just got a violation on something, a real estate thing. And I was like, shit, why. I was dealing with it the whole day with lawyers and land use consultants in this city. And I went to a hearing yesterday, all that, right? And I was like, I'm such an idiot. Like, why did I put myself through all this? And then I realized that I was about to do something similar, much bigger, much more expensive, using the same kind of, this just basically saved me from not doing a much way bigger expensive mistake. And it's very clear that if this wouldn't have happened to me, I would have had a much bigger expensive. So things don't happen to me, they happen for me. That's the tweet version of it. And when I am cognizant of that, then it's like, we don't want those dips to come. We want God to give us the abundant blessings without the dips, but we all know that those dips are actually good. We really become stronger. You fight with your spouse and you become stronger after that.
Right. The way I've heard it put is, you're scaling this mountain. This is metaphorical. You're scaling the mountain. It's impossible to walk up a smooth mountain. It'll be too slippery. The mountain has to have pockmarks and craters in it. And those craters are the things that often ruin our day, but make our year. I had one of my first times where I thought everything was over. I was probably a year into the land business, and I get this call from this HOA in Missouri, and they're like, hey, your buyer lead, she was a terms buyer. So technically I was still the owner. She was the borrower. She brought into this HOA, she brought in all these gravel trucks while it was raining, and they had just dirt roads. And so the HOA was claiming that your borrower damaged miles and miles of roads because she brought in heavy trucks when it was raining and she didn't have permission, which they were right. She should have gotten permission. And at the time I was like, I don't know how much this costs, 40 grand, 200 grand. Are they going to sue me? Am I going to lose everything? And I'm stressing. And then I go out there, I actually drove out there, and there was no damage. I'm like, these people they're just annoyed with me. And I stressed for weeks for no reason. And even if the worst case would have happened, let's say 200K, the fine or their lawsuit or whatever, it would have put me behind by a year at that time. It's fine, right? But those things, they cause us to pray more. They cause us to talk with our spouse. And I think they're good. And one of the reasons I respect you, Meir, is because you have such a positive outlook on life. And you genuinely enjoy the game, and you just love having fun. Okay, so we talked through your background. We talked about a few things already. What's next for you in your journey? What are you excited about?
So I want to build the largest land wholesaling company in America. That's pretty exciting. Once that happens, I also want to scale Modern Escapes, which is the micro resorts that we're building, to also the largest luxury unique stays brand in America. At least we could do the world, but I think America is a pretty good starting point. So those are the two the two ventures that get me excited. I'm very excited about AI, honestly, and all the implications that it has and how I could leverage it in my businesses, really. And I'm just pretty excited where the world is going. I know it could be used for not such good things, and it could also make people be further apart. But anyway, AI is a different conversation, but that's exciting. And then in terms of my family and friends, I have 3 little kids. I love them very much. I spend a lot of time with them, at least I would say 5-6 hours a day. Even though they go to school and I go to work, I still spend a ton of time with them. And then on weekends, the whole day, the whole Saturday, the whole Sunday. And they're incredible. And I am just so excited for them. Hopefully, maybe we'll have more kids as well. And building a family with my wife is a very exciting thing. It's not easy at all. It's very difficult, but it's very rewarding. And I do believe ultimately it's my purpose in this world. So
I love it. Do you have a fear that Seth and I talked about this. The typical fear that you hear about is that you're going to work too much, and then on your deathbed, you're going to regret not spending enough time with your kids.
Yeah.
But Seth and I talked about, him and I talked about, we actually spend a lot of time with our kids, and we actually have the opposite fear where we wonder, like, will there be business ventures or aspirations that we didn't explore because we spent too much time hanging out?
That's a great question. I never really thought what would be my biggest fear in my deathbed. I would say that I didn't love enough, that I didn't spend enough time with my wife, because the kids take up all the space. And by the time they go to sleep, we're both just exhausted.
Yeah.
Maybe go more on like lunch dates with my wife. Like kids are at school, I'm at work. That could be a potential regret. And not going for big. Yeah, I was literally had a meeting earlier today with one of my partners at Modern Escapes, and we're looking at our next different properties that we're looking into. And he brought up a $100 million project, golf course, the whole thing. He brought it up to me. He's like, "What do you think about this?" I'm like, "We just did one for 1.5 million. You want to jump to 100 million?" He's like, "Why not?" And actually, he got me thinking for a minute. Like,
what's the worst that's going to happen?
Why not? And talk about, are we going to have that reverse fear and the death, regrets and the death? But maybe I should have built that $100 million project. But then what is the question? What if I did build a $100 million project? And then what? Am I going to feel better about myself? I think a big regret I might have is not being more connected, not praying more, not learning more of Torah and the deep meaning of like life, and also not like hanging out with like serendipity of life. Just go on the one way to Japan and see what happens. Everything has to be planned and calculated and the schedule and the calendar with a return ticket. Yeah, obviously you have a wife and kids and stuff, but when I was single, I lived in a one-way ticket everywhere. I was 2-3 years going around the world, and I missed that. And I feel like I'm not really living life when there isn't growth and movement. I live on a farm in a suburb in the US. Great, very peaceful, very loving. Sometimes I wonder, like, maybe a little more action.
So it feels a little bit too rote right now.
Yeah.
I could tell you, Meir, I'm on the other extreme right now where
I know.
Like, we literally have no house. Like, we have no place to live. Like, we donated all our furniture to one of the families that lost their home in the fire.
Oh, wow.
And because we were a mile away from the fire, and we're just traveling. We have some stuff in, not storage, but with a family member. And in May, when we come back, we have no idea where we're going to live.
Oh, you gave up your house.
Yeah, we were renting. It doesn't make sense to buy a $2 million place right now with the interest rates. And so we're on the other extreme. I'm actually flying to China. So on Saturday, today's Friday right now. Saturday, I do a podcast with Kevin Rockwood at 5 a.m. Then I hop on a bullet train to Seoul. I spend the day in Seoul with Ajay Sharma. Then I hop on a plane. I fly to China. And then that night, he actually just canceled or rescheduled. But then I was supposed to podcast with Clay Hepler all in one day. And one of my business partners, she just landed in China, and they sent her back to the US because they're like, your return, I guess she was trying to do the wrong visa. And so I guess my point is, so I think I'm going to be fine when I land, but I haven't researched it. I'm just winging it. Like, I'm trying to do this 10-day transit visa. But I guess my point is, I'm on the other extreme, and I think I need to realize how fun it is, but often it feels just like a lack of stability and lack of roots. So I don't know. Maybe there's a balance in there somewhere. I don't know what it is, because you have roots. You're very grounded. I don't know how you can toss in, like, how do you toss in more spontaneity in your life? I don't know what it would be.
We're going to Mexico next week with the whole family for 2 weeks to the mountains. There's no service. It's going to be Passover. And we're We eat kosher. There's a lot of planning that goes into
Yeah.
flying a family of 5 in Passover to middle nowhere. We
Yeah.
have friends coming in from Israel, from California, and from Mexico itself. So it's going to be fun. But last time we went there was no hot water in the showers. There was no insulation in the house, and it was freezing.
Yeah.
So we do have a little bit of that. And then I just try to make trips and do things like these and try to have more fun. Honestly, when you ask me about this podcast interview, there's so much on my plate, especially now. I don't know why. There's so many things that need to get done, and I had to prioritize. And I'm like, hanging out with Drew should be a priority, even if it's not a objectively super important to the growth of my business or whatnot. Like, this is living life, sitting with a friend,
Yeah.
and just chatting. So I'm trying to really add a little bit more of that.
Have you taken Enneagram test?
Yes and no. I forget, maybe 6 or 7 or something like that. Maybe I'm 7, could be.
Yeah, I think you're a 7, the enthusiast.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. A lot of the guys I interview are 3s, which is the achiever. And like the biggest fear for the achiever is not achieving. And so it's this constant like hamster wheel where you're just sprinting on this. You're just sprinting on better and better hamster wheels, and it can get exhausting. But then when you get off the hamster wheel, you get super bored. And then it's this nonstop thing. Do you feel like you're ever on that where you bounce between 2 extremes? You're like sprinting and then you slow down, but then you get really bored, and it just seems hard to find a middle ground between the two.
So I don't get bored. There's so many things going on in my head and so many ideas and so many ways to scale the businesses, to optimize them. And I'm a kind of guy that if I have an idea, I literally take out my phone and start doing it, start researching it. It's like if my wife says, I think we should buy what, I'm like right away on my phone. She said, put your phone away. I'm just telling you something. I'm already thinking. She's talking to me about how slow the housekeeper folds laundry. Last night, I was just sitting in the bed in the couch, and we're just talking about it. And I was like, why is there a human folding laundry? There's a machine that folds laundry. Like, this is such a tedious task. Think about like how many hours a week she spends doing that with 5 people in the house, and how much is an hourly wage. So I'm already researching laundry folding machines, which, by the way, they don't really exist. There's one that's massive. It looks like a computer from the 80s. And I'm like researching robots. So the point is, I don't get bored. I get bored when sometimes on Saturdays when there's no phone. I keep the Sabbath, so there's no phone, there's no laptop, there's just books, and sometimes we have, now it's coming up with 3 consecutive days of Sabbath, because the first 2 days of Passover.
The Passover.
But the first 2 days are Sunday and Monday. So we have Saturday, Sunday, Monday. 72 hours of no phone, no computer, no electricity. So those days I get bored. But what's interesting, what happens? So the first day is hard. The second day is like resentment. Is what the hell is this?
Yeah.
and interestingly enough, by the third day, there's also, you can't drive a car. So whoever you're with, you know what I mean? It's not like, okay, let's take off and go elsewhere. By the third day, it's bliss. Usually it's, I don't want to open my phone. I just don't. I want it, like, this phoneless life is incredible. I want to just throw it away. So that's an interesting.
So it feels really peaceful. By the way, my wife is a Enneagram 7 also, and she doesn't get bored. She just constantly, like, if she gets the whole afternoon off, she's doing stuff, she's exploring, she's learning languages. So I think maybe that's part of your personality there. I want to talk about Sabbath. So I think there's spiritual benefits and truths to it, but also just like God knew when he designed that, he knew that our brain needs a dopamine detox. So once a week for 24 hours, you have nothing spiking that dopamine, right?
Correct.
I've noticed that when I don't take a Sabbath, I get sick more, I feel stressed more, I feel overwhelmed much more often, versus when I'm doing that once a week, everything else seems to be much more manageable. It's like I'm doing a dopamine reset almost. Can you talk about that? What
Sure.
kind of fruit have you seen from that?
So it depends what gives you dopamine, by the way. It's not a dopamine reset, but it's a healthy dopamine, right? So you're surrounded by friends and family, and maybe you're playing a game, a board game. Maybe you're drinking, if you're into that, and singing and praying and playing and jumping on the trampoline with the kids. And there's a lot of that. It's the healthy kind of dopamine. There's no TikTok, YouTube shorts, social media, doom scrolling. So that's like unhealthy dopamine, I would say. And then in terms of the fruits, I agree with you, man. God designed this world in a very perfect way. There's a lot of perfect imperfections, but they're perfect in the greater sense. And there was a lot of, so God created the world, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6. This is like day after day. And then in the 7th day, God said, done. We're resting right now. We're not doing it. And he instituted this as a day of rest, and nothing really changed in 5,785 years since the creation of the world. Nothing changed. People still are hustling on Sundays and on Mondays and on Tuesdays. Doesn't matter if you were farming, hunting, or if you're building an LLM with a super intelligent, if you're in your office coding, it doesn't matter what generation you're in, you're hustling day in, day out. And then on that 7th day, you cannot do any work, and you can't even go to a land conference. It's your home with your wife and kids, and doesn't matter. No money in the world will get me to break that. Literally no money.
Yeah.
It's priceless.
I know that's why you don't go to a lot of land events, because they take place on Saturday, right? That's mine. Mine is on a Saturday. Day 2 is. So do you ever, I talked about hustling. Do you ever feel Adam's curse? Do you ever feel like, man, this is really hard and I'm going to do this until I'm 80? This is exhausting. In like a bad day. I'm not saying every day.
No. I'll tell you when I feel that. I feel that in the gym. This morning, like my trainer was like telling me to do something that was so annoying. I forget what it was, like a figure 4 stretch on the floor. And the floor was dirty.
Oh, yeah.
And it was hurting my thigh, and I was all sweaty. So it was just like, I did 2 sets, and then it's like a 3rd set. And I was like, come on, I hate this. But I don't have that in the office. I do have it sometimes with stressful situations, but I don't have it. Oh, why do I need to keep working? Why do I need to? It's like eating. Do you like eating? Depends. But like for the most part, it's fun. If it's good, like, yeah, if you're hungry, sure. So being hungry, if you're hungry, then eating is not a chore. But if you're not hungry, then it is. And I think maybe in work, I don't know, I'm making this up, but I'm pretty sure it applies to work as well, where someone who's hungry, you hire that sales guy, that closer who's just hungry. He's not going to have a bad day. He's not going to complain, because that's the definition of hungry. You're giving him food. Yeah. Someone who's not hungry for money, or is not necessarily for money, or just someone who's just not motivated like that, then it becomes just a drag.
I found that my hunger correlates to competition. So like when I started off in the land business, as I was leaving my W-2, that like on my last day, the CFO of the company that I was leaving, he basically chuckled at my business model as if it was some petty, cute little thing that's not going to work. Right. He's, have fun with your land speculation.
Right.
And it bothered me so much. That's what fueled me for the first 2-3 years, because I'm like, F that guy. I'm going to make more money than him. And I realized that I've lost him as a competitor, and I've lost him as this Goliath enemy, because I think I make the same or more money than him, right? So he's gone. And Ajay was telling me, you need to find a new Goliath to take down, a new competitor. And I'm going through Patrick Bet-David's book about choose your enemies wisely, because I'm very competitive, and what drives me is competition. But if there's nobody competing, if there's nobody I can like in the funding space, Is there anyone better than Drew Haney? No.
I didn't take you as a competitive guy. It's so funny. You're so giving and you're so open. And those are two quality traits that you don't see in competitive people. So it's interesting that you say that.
I'm very competitive. If you ever play like a board game with me or something, I get really into it. And I'm half joking about the funding thing, but I'm also serious. There's not really anyone in my space that I think delivers higher quality money services than I do. There may be one or two guys that are bigger, but in terms of quality, there's not really anyone that I know of that's exceeding me in that metric. And of course, it's
money.
Like I have this boutique service where like you text Drew, you immediately get a response, right? And so I think that has caused me to lose some motivation steam because there's nobody to beat. There's nobody to chase, right? There's nobody to take down. And so what this book is teaching me is like, you need to search for somebody outside of, if there's nobody in your sphere, you need to find an enemy outside of that. And of course, you don't tell them that they're your enemy. There's a couple funders in this space that one guy, he told me in the sauna at the supercar event, he said, yeah, I make sure all of my operators, I look up what personal assets they have so that if the deal goes south, I'm going to sue them. And I'm like, what? That's crazy. That's exactly opposite of my mentality. If something goes wrong, I care about these operators so much that I would actually be concerned. And so he's not a good enemy because I'm either the same size of him or like bigger in terms of deal funding. And so what this book is teaching is you find an enemy outside of your sphere. And so there was this guy in the entrepreneurial space. Jared helped me get on his podcast. And I'm all excited because he's like one of the biggest podcasts in the space. I'm not going to say which one it was. And 7 minutes before I go on, he emails me. So it's like a big podcast. I showered. I like put the hair gel in my hair. I got all set up. And then 7 minutes before the interview starts, he emails me and he's, yeah, I just don't have a good feeling about you. So I'm just going to cancel. And I'm like, what the F? Like, F you, dude. Now I'm going to try to make a podcast bigger and better than yours. And so he's a good enemy in the podcast space, right? But I think I need to find someone to compete with in the land space because that's really what drives me. Now circling back onto our original topic. So for you, competition is not really a driver. What drives you?
Who said that competition is not a driver for me?
It sounds like you're just enjoying your Enneagram 7. You're the enthusiast. You're just enjoying working on your projects. Yeah. So is competition important for you?
I'm the youngest of 6 boys. We're all a year and a half apart. Okay.
Yeah. So and I met your brother, one of your brothers.
One of them. Yeah. Another 4 to go. And then my sister as well. So just imagine being the youngest boy. And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on top. And my parents are busy and I'm this kid just floating around. And in my mind, there are very strong messages saying I don't really matter. And I'm just number 6. And I need to prove myself to justify my existence in a way.
Justify your worth.
My worth and my existence in this space and to be seen. And sometimes I wonder if that never fully went away.
Yeah.
We don't have this like contest with my siblings. One of them is a therapist, one of them is a rabbi. We're not trying to measure who's making more money ever. We always lend each other money or invest in each other's projects or work very collaboratively. But deep down, I wonder if I still need to prove myself to them or to my parents. That could be a motivator. What else motivates me?
Let's talk about that because I think a lot of people have that, including me, where we're constantly trying to get noticed. And I found for me, I think a lot of people, they're trying to get the attention of their father. But for me, it's actually the opposite, where my dad was very, like, he showed up to every cross country meet. I have only good memories. And with my mom, I also only have good memories. However, she was always going to night school. I just felt like it was harder to get attention from her. And so I've noticed even into adulthood, I'm always trying to achieve things to impress her, which is usually backwards. Usually it's the father that the child is trying to impress. But for me, it's the mother. And it just seems like it's, how do we get off this like treadmill where we're just trying to get one of our parents to notice us?
Why do you want to get off of it?
It doesn't seem healthy.
You just said you wanted to get a new enemy. Is it healthy to have an enemy?
I think it's clear that both my parents love me. And it's very clear that I've exceeded both of them in terms of career performance. So I think it's unhealthy. Because also what I've noticed I do this like whiplash extreme. Like I do this thing where I try to overcompensate, and I try to do this thing where I'm like, I don't care at all what my parents think. And it's this compensating thing. I don't know. But I think this is really common. Maybe I'll explore it. I might add it to the questions. I think this is a very common thing, and maybe it never goes away. Right?
Look, my wife is a therapist, and maybe she'll be down for a podcast interview. Probably not, but I'm sure she has a lot to say about this. I don't know. I don't think I'm trying to prove my parents anymore. I think it's more those neural pathways that have been created since I'm a kid, which is, okay, I need to be different. Maybe it's just ego. I need to look different. You
need to be noticed.
And in order to be noticed, I need to be remarkable. I need to be like the purple cow. You know what I mean? Like, I need to be another cow. And it comes up a lot. Like, I had to buy a car. I needed a car. So I went with this crazy 2011 BMW that I paid $5,000 for it. But it was different, and it was noticed. It wasn't just a regular Toyota or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I had to let go of it because it was just annoying. And then I'm like, okay, I need a new car. So now it's again, I'm having these existential identity crisis of, what car am I? I can't just get a regular car. I'm just not a regular guy.
Yeah.
And yeah, at least I'm aware of it. And it's something that like I struggle with a little bit. And it's because, let's just be real. I grew up as probably one of the only religious kids in the whole Uruguay, like Jewish religious kids in the whole country of Uruguay, wearing kippah and all that. So like from day one, it was very clear, hey kid, you're different. And for me, it was a badge of honor. Some people hate being different. For me, it's, hey, if you're just swimming with the current, you're just a sheep. It's just following, like why would you want to be a sheep? So that's why, like, I live in a farm. I actually have sheep in my property and chickens and animals. Everything about the way I live my life is very unconventional. It is very different. And it's not because I want people to say, oh, Meir is different, but because I don't have a box. And some people like think in the box, and people sometimes think out of the box. For me, it's hard to explain, but I don't even start, when I try to solve a problem, I don't even start the regular way. It's like weird. It's like, it's like automatically goes into like creative problem solving mode. And I wonder why that is. Is it because I've always been different? Is it because if I do things the regular way, I'm just gonna get depressed. Like, imagine I lived in a regular house in a regular HOA, like a cookie cutter house, even if it's a $3 million house, but there's 100 of these $3 million homes and they're all identical. When you go to Orlando or whatever, and I would go crazy. I'd rather live either on a shack, because that's my, and it's got personality, it's got flavor, or I just can't with these. So America is great. There's a lot good things about America. One of the things America did was scale. Okay. So the school system in America, the food system in America, the hospital system in America, these are all just built for scale and efficiency. So they optimize for efficiency and scale. My first two kids were born in a hospital because that's what everybody does. I have to have your kid in a hospital. And then my wife and I were like, but why? What did they do before hospitals? You know what I mean? Like, why do I need? And so you go to the hospitals, they plug you, and you have to push this way, that way. You have to be on the bed. They just drive you crazy with like all these regulations.
Yep.
I'm trying to have a baby here, you know? Like, just let me have my baby, and I'll call you if I need you. But
Yeah.
it's rules and regulations. So the third kid was just born in my bed in my room. I was like, you know how to have a baby. You're a woman. You have a baby. We'll call some nurse and midwives and let's go. Same with school. Get kids through school. And turns out they put my 3-year-old in the principal's office because, I don't know, like he's 3. Like, what do you think? Like, where did we go wrong here? So we should start homeschooling and we build our own little school. Now he's back to a regular school. It's much better. The same with food. The amount of crap that we eat, just because it's just built for scale. And it's just like, what happened to just regular, wholesome, unique, make your own piece of bread with your own. So there's a lot of me that gravitates towards these different, and sometimes it bites me in the ass. I was like, Meir, why did you do this? Like, why did you do it in such a unconventional way? And I actually have a brother who's very conventional and everything. He tries to live his life in he plays it more safe, let's just say. And I do these crazy investments and he will never do them. And I judge myself for it sometimes when it's like, why did you do things so backward? But that sometimes I just have to acknowledge that is who I am and that is how I do things. So if you're listening to this or if you relate to this, if that's how you do something, it doesn't matter if your brothers or your parents or whatever, this is your way. This is your journey. This is your path.
You said earlier that you don't get bored, but it sounds like you would get bored if you followed
if I had a
the
9 to 5 and lived in a cookie cutter HOA house and
you drove a Toyota Camry,
and even if it was a very nice car, but it was the same day in, day out with the same office, same people, same house, same everything was just like bland. There was no doing the same 9 to 5 job. And another thing that's very important, and it came to mind a few times during this podcast. What's incredible about entrepreneurship is that God is in control ultimately, but you're driving that wheel. So you're in control of the amount of leads that you get. Okay. You want more leads, for example, send more mail, send more text, right? You're in control of that. You're in control of anything in the business. It's your team. So you want to pivot to houses, you want to shut it down. So it's very hard to get bored when you're in control versus when you're just working for someone and this is your job. For people like me, that's a nightmare. For people who are, I don't know what Enneagram type, but for people who just like to go to work every day and get a paycheck and have that stability, that is a dream. So know thyself, and it could take you very long.
Tony Robbins has I forget the name of the test, but you take this test and then it tells you what your biggest need is. And so for some people, the biggest need is security. For me, it's the need for variety. I need things to change. And so I think that's why I've moved so much in my life. I lived in the same town until I was 18.
Wow.
And now I found after about 2 years of it being in the same place, I'm ready for the next thing. I'm ready for the new environment. And it sounds like you're the same.
Yeah, but I can't do that with kids. It's just I can't put them through that.
So what do kids need? Like in terms of items, they need like toothbrush, some books, and like a pillow. They don't really need much. So we typically give away our whole household and then just move with some clothes and stuff. And then just start over. It's very inefficient in terms of buying new furniture, but I think it keeps us nimble. It keeps us fresh. So everyone has their thing. I know you just moved. So you moved to California in 2020 and then you moved to Florida in what,
2023.
20? So you did the same thing.
Yeah, and before that I was in New York. So yeah, we've been moving, but I just don't want to keep moving. I don't want to plant roots. I want my friends to have childhood friends. I want to have friends with my wife as well, a couple of friends and family friends that we can grow together and have our kids grow together and really have that solid foundation, as opposed to every year somewhere else and starting. I don't know that I like that so much for me.
Yeah. We might be, there's a suburb called San Marino in just south of Pasadena. And if we could grow roots there, I would like to. It's just the average house there is like 3.5 million. So we need to do some creative financing to get a mortgage or something, but good stuff. I'm trying to think what else. We didn't actually go through these questions. Typically with the guests, I go through a list of questions. We've touched on a lot of things. One thing I do want to ask you, how much risk do you need in your life to feel alive?
Oh man.
Risk and adventure.
Feel alive. Let's define feeling alive. Like I feel alive when I come home and I see my kids, and my kid is playing with a fire truck, and my daughter is playing with a rabbit, and my other daughter is just dancing, and I'm like, wow, it's incredible. I'm alive. I'm living my life. I'm free. That's not a lot of risk. The thrill, maybe, the feeling, the thrill. I don't love risk, to be honest. I'm not like a risk junkie. I like to play things a little safer. I know it's surprising based on everything I just shared, but it's, if something is like a little too like risky for my life, for example, or like a lot of money, like going all in on a property that's a maybe, I don't like doing those things.
Makes sense. Sir, it's getting late there. Let's talk about any plugs you want to make, any way people can get a hold of you, any events you're attending coming up, anything that you want to promote.
No, I don't, no courses to sell, no coaching either, no services to sell. If you have a deal that you, like a bigger deal that you want to do together, I'm not a funder. Drew is a funder. I'm more like, if you need an operator, if it's a double close, if it's a subdivide, you can always hit me up and I can take a look at the deal. Meir at LotOfLand.com. Meir is MEIR at LotOfLand, LOTOFLAND. I started a Twitter account, x.com/landmeir, LANDMEIR. And I've been sharing a lot of things there, deals, deal reviews, thoughts about the land space, thoughts about entrepreneurship in general, thoughts about life, a little bit of personal stuff. So I think it's fun. If you're on Twitter, definitely give it a follow. And in terms of the resort that we built in Pennsylvania, if you want to check it out, modernescapes.com. You could also go on Instagram. There's a lot of eye candy in terms of, our account has a lot of cool content. That is Instagram.com/mirrorvillas. So you can give that if you want. And yeah, you can always reach out.
Awesome. Thanks, Meir. Always good talking. And until next time.
Thank you, Drew. Pleasure being here, man.
All right. That's it for today. I hope this conversation got you thinking and maybe even questioning a few things. And that's the point. This isn't about having all the answers. It's about figuring it out together. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you want to keep exploring these ideas, make sure to subscribe and follow me over at theothersideofenough.com. Let's keep the conversation going and see you next time.